Hello and welcome back to J.P.s World of Wrestling. I am your man J.P. and we continue on. That's right, we continue on with not only my top 5 list, but also I've got another WCW original San Francisco Toy Makers action figure to show you. Now I've only got 2 left, so this will be not the last one, but the second to the last one. So I'm going to show you this guy. This is Kevin Sullivan, also known as the Taskmaster, both in WCW. Now, I have to admit, the Taskmaster probably should have ended up on one of my worst gimmicks list because it was just awful. The Dungeon of Doom was awful. Maybe I'll revisit that. But nevertheless, this is Kevin Sullivan. Now, Kevin Sullivan was one of the head bookers in WCW. He was one of the guys that kind of wrote storylines and laid out the matches and stuff for the guys, and he was one of the head guys there, and he's one of the head guys that did that. But he was came across as kind of a rough and tough guy. He reminded me a lot of like an evil rugged Ronnie Garvin. He kind of wrestled the same way, kind of the same way where he kind of was kind of short, but kind of stocky, but still kind of tough, But yeah, Kevin Sullivan, nothing fancy really about him. I know he was in WCW for a long time, and he used to portray like this evil, like satanic guy that would come down wearing a dog collar and chain, and I don't know if she was his wife or his girlfriend at the time, Nancy, who later became the wife of Chris Benoit. She came down with Kevin Sullivan, and they were kind of a duo. I don't know, but later on, he became one of the staples in WCW, but he was mostly always a heel. And when Hulk Hogan came in, he really feuded with Hulk Hogan, saying he wanted to end Hulkamania. And that's kind of when the Dungeon of Doom came in, and they had all these stupid characters. And I think that's going to be a whole video by itself. It's just the Dungeon of Doom, which was awful, just horrible, horrible. Ugh, it can't even be classified as wrestling, really. And I tell you what's funny is the guy in charge at the time, Eric Bischoff, admits it. He admits it was just awful, just a terrible, terrible story. Anyway, this is Kevin Sullivan. It's a pretty good figure, pretty solid figure. I like it. Anyway, Kevin Sullivan. Okay, now I'm going to do a top 5 list. Now, the last couple, people kind of got a kick out of them because they were terrible gimmicks. And I've got another one right after this that I'm doing of just WCW gimmicks. And there are some whoppers, believe me. But this list, a little different. These are the top 5 of my favorite guys from the Attitude Era, with an honorable mention. Now, like all of you know, I was not a big fan of the Attitude Era. I just wasn't. I still watched WWF, but I really wasn't into it as much because all the characters, the WWF at the time was just kind of vulgar and obscene, and I just wasn't into it. It just wasn't my kind of thing because I grew up with traditional, morals and values, and, most of the entertainment I consumed was very family friendly, or at least not offensive in any way. And, so I liked my wrestling to be the same. And during that time, it was just, I didn't like it. But there were a few characters that I did like at the time, but a couple of, one of these they actually did utilize, and he actually was a champion. But some of these, they were just bottom of the card guys, or mid card at best guys that I just liked, and I thought they were cool. And they're not really necessarily in order, but anyway, I'll start with number 5, and I'll go with Mankind. Technically, Mankind came in before the Attitude Era. He kind of came in during the new WWF generation, started feuding with The Undertaker. But like I've said before, I think Mankind was a believable opponent for The Undertaker. And I thought he was cool. I liked the whole, he can take a lot of pain and punishment type thing. Although I know he really did feel the pain. I know that Mick Foley, the guy who portrayed Mankind, has said before, yeah, it all hurt. Every single one of it hurt. It's just he did it because he wanted to stand out from all the other wrestlers at the time. And of course, he had other personas. He had Cactus Jack and Duke Love, and he wrestled just as himself, Mick Foley. And so I really liked Mankind. So number 4 is X-Pac. Now, I wasn't a big fan of Degeneration X, primarily like in its original form. It was just Shawn Michaels and Triple H and China. I never really got into it because, again, I thought it was vulgar and obscene and lewd, and I didn't, with all of the innuendos and all the like half naked women, and I didn't like it. And plus, they would make obscene gestures, and it wasn't for me. But X-Pac, I really like X-Pac. He was in the group because he was friends with both Triple H and Shawn Michaels. So after Shawn Michaels left DX, Triple H brought in X-Pac, Bad A, Billy Gunn, and the Road Dogg. And I did like X-Pac. I liked his wrestling style. He did all these like believable martial art kicks and karate kicks, probably because he actually knows karate, and he did a lot of those kicks and stuff. And I actually really liked X-Pac. I always did, even when he was 1-2-3 kid, and he was 6. I liked X-Pac, also known as Sean Waltman, but I like X-Pac. Now number 3 was a guy they never really used for much. He was a hardcore champion, but that's about as far as he went. But it's Steve Blackman. Now Steve Blackman was a legit bad A behind the scenes. I mean, he was legit tough, legit black belt in karate. In fact, I've heard stories, and other wrestlers have, backed up this story where he was in an airport one time. One time he was traveling, and JBL, John Bradshaw Layfield, kept kind of bugging him. He kept like messing with him. And so in the airport at a baggage claim, I think they said it was in Kansas City, but I could be wrong about that. But it was at the airport, and JBL finally got into Steve Blackman's face, and Steve Blackman finally had enough of it, and he kicked JBL and knocked him out. Like, legit, just knocked him out. And then Steve Blackman just kind of picked up his bags and left. But JBL was kind of just knocked out. But JBL was always kind of a bully, kind of always stirring up trouble, from what I hear. Now, I don't know that for sure. I wasn't there. I wasn't behind the scenes. But from what I hear, JBL was kind of a bully backstage. And just thought of, I'm tougher than all you guys, and I could beat all you guys. But Steve Blackman proved him wrong. So the Steve Blackman comes in at number, and also have to, yes, I've talked about wrestlers having personalities and stuff, and Steve Blackman didn't really have one, but I don't think really he needed one. Because his whole gimmick was the fact that he's just a black belt in karate, and that he's tough. And he didn't really do a lot of promos. He just kicked people's butts. And that's what he did best. So, Steve Blackman is number 3. And number 2 is the Blue Meanie. That's right. I always just got a kick out of the Blue Meanie. I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was his dance moves or what it was, or his little thing like that, or what it was. The fact that he was formerly part of the Blue World Order, or if he was part of Al Snow's Job Squad. I don't know what it was. But for whatever reason, I always found the Blue Meanie entertaining. I always got a kick out of him. And even though it was the Attitude Era, but still, I like the Blue Meanie. Now, number 1 on my list of my favorite guys from the Attitude Era in the WWF. Now, number 1 actually is number 1 because he was my favorite guy from the Attitude Era. And I'm talking about Al Snow. That's right, the guy that came down with a mannequin head. And he did a lot of hardcore style matches. He was in ECW for a while. Then he came into the WWF as one half of the New Rockers, Leif Cassidy. But I think right before that, though, he was Avatar, which that didn't work. He was kind of like a ninja, but he had a mask, but he carried his mask in his hand. Coming to the ring, that just didn't work. It was stupid. But then he became Leif Cassidy, tagging up with Marty Jannetty as part of the New Rockers. then they just revealed him just as Al Snow. And then he came down to the ring with this mannequin head and his action figure, which was made by Jakks Pacific at the time. A lot of women kind of protested and boycotted this action figure, and this action figure was actually banned from a lot of store shelves. And because these women, they thought that Al Snow was promoting violence against women because he had this mannequin head, but that's not really what it was. He was actually portraying like a crazy guy that was talking to a mannequin head. That's all it was. He wasn't portraying violence against women. It wasn't supposed to be an actual woman's head. It's a mannequin head. It was clearly a mannequin head. But anyway, I really like Al Snow, and actually, of all the guys that do shoot interviews, Al Snow's probably my favorite one because he's really articulate in what he says, and he's very good at conveying like not only what's wrong with modern wrestling, but everything that wrestler trainees should remember. Like there's a series of videos of him having to talk with all these up and coming wrestlers at a training facility, and he's talking to all these wrestlers about what they need to do and why certain things are done in the wrestling business, and doing subtle little things and what not to do and all that. And he's actually very intelligent, and he understands what he does and understands what he did do for a long time and was really good at it. So Al Snow comes in at number 1 in my list of top 5 favorite Attitude Era guys. Now I wanted to give one honorable mention, and that is to Mr. Glenn Jacobs, Kane. Now Kane was on one of my worst gimmicks lists as Isaac Yankem DDS, the evil dentist. But right after that, he became the fake Diesel. After Kevin Nash left, Jim Ross brought back Diesel and Razor Ramon, but they was like two completely different guys. It was clearly two different guys. And Diesel happened to be the guy formerly Isaac Yankem. But then after that, that gimmick was never really meant to work. It was never really meant to last. It was just WWF's way of saying, ha ha, we own these gimmicks and we can do what we want with them. So, because that was right after Kevin Nash and Scott Hall had left the WWF and went to WCW. So then Glenn Jacobs became Kane. Now they did this whole drawn out story, and I actually did like this storyline where The Undertaker kept being kind of stalked by Paul Bearer, and Paul Bear's like, I know your secrets, Undertaker. I know your secret, Undertaker. You will do as I say, or I will unleash your secrets, Undertaker. So then Undertaker would just kind of ignore him and like, I don't care. I'm going to do what I want, Paul Bearer. You had your chance, but you ditched me for Mankind. And so I never forgave you for that, so I'm on my own now. So then finally at ringside, Undertaker, Paul Bearer is there. So Undertaker finally comes out, starts beating up Paul Bearer. And then Paul Bearer talks about, before that, I have to back up. Before that, Paul Bearer started talking about The Undertaker's brother Kane and how Undertaker killed his brother Kane. You killed your brother Kane, Undertaker. You're a murderer, a GD murderer. That's a swear word I'm not going to say. Gosh darn. You know what I'm trying to say there. But he's like, you're a gosh darn murderer, Undertaker. And you're going to burn in you know where, Undertaker. So finally, at ringside, Undertaker grabbed Paul Bearer and had him down and was going to beat him up. But then Paul Bearer said, your brother's alive, Undertaker. Your brother Kane is alive. So then Undertaker kind of took a step back. Whoa, So then at the next pay-per-view, I think it was Bad Blood, but The Undertaker wrestled Shawn Michaels in a Hell in a Cell match. Or, sorry, I cussed there, Heck in a Cell. Anyway. But Undertaker was getting ready to win the WWF Championship from Shawn Michaels. Then the lights went out, and some red lights came on. And then suddenly, Kane came out, ripped the door off the cell, and came in and faced The Undertaker face to face, and they started this feud where The Undertaker finally faced Kane at WrestleMania 14 And I actually liked the feud. It was drawn out. It was a story. There was a long, drawn out story arc, and that's kind of what I miss. For a while, they just kind of got rid of long-term storytelling. That's kind of what I didn't like about the Attitude Era. Is for the most part, they didn't do long-term storylines. It was just from week to week, and it was just chaos and a bunch of obscene garbage that I didn't care for. But this was actually a story that they wrote ahead of time, and they played it out, and it was like long going, like years for years and years. Like finally, Undertaker and Kane like reconciled, and but then Kane, became evil again, and he went without a mask for a while, and you know, I don't know. I kind of like Kane, so he gets an honorable mention in my top 5 favorite Attitude Era guys. And there weren't a time, like I said, I didn't like the Attitude Era. And I'm not going to keep beating that dead horse, but I'm just saying I didn't care for the Attitude Era. Anyway, but I did like those guys that I just mentioned. So that is going to do it for this video. So if you're new here, go ahead and like and subscribe. It doesn't take much. Just push the subscribe button and then share it on social media if you like, or you don't have to, whatever. And I will see you next time.